This video, we're going to look at the top 5 questions that Dunkin Donuts like to ask in their interviews, and I'm going to help you plan fantastic answers to these that will get you a job at Dunkin Donuts. So let's start with a question that they ask in pretty much every single interview ever done, and that's simply, what times can you work at Dunkin Donuts? And people always screw up this question. They immediately start by saying all the times that they can't work and give the hiring manager lots of reasons not to take you on. To be successful, however, I've got a simple 3-step procedure. The first thing you do is you show off your flexibility. You name a range of times that show that you can work lots of different times, and you also make it clear that you can work at short notice and that you can be there when they need you. That is really what they are looking for. And when you do that, you're showing a can-do attitude. You're always talking about the times you can do, and you're just not bothering mentioning any of the times that you can't do. You do not volunteer any information about the times that you can't do. Some particular times that they really like and they really need people is at store opening time. So if you're willing to get up early in the morning and work, that's a great thing to mention. Short notice, they love people that are highly flexible and can take on shifts when they have a requirement. If you can work at weekends and you're happy with that, that is another time that's slightly more difficult to staff. So volunteering to work weekends gets the interviewer's attention. If you can work school holidays, that is a fantastic thing to mention and gets, again, the interviewer more interested in you. If you can't work school holidays, the simple thing is, don't mention school holidays. Do not volunteer anything that you can't do. To be successful in this question, give a range of times and have a can do. So keep talking about all the times you can do. Don't mention the times that you can't do. If you are pressed on a specific time that you can't do, rather than just immediately saying no to it, try to offer as much flexibility as you can. Perhaps say that you could do that time every 2 weeks, or that you could move the commitment that you have on that day to another day to free you up to be there. You're always trying to say yes. And if you do that, you're going to be successful on this question. So let's look at question 2. What can you tell me about Dunkin Donuts? And there is absolutely no point going to an interview with a company without preparing thoroughly. You need to know a lot about the company. And on this question, there's a simple procedure that you're going to follow. The first thing you're going to make sure is that you know everything that everyone knows about the company. So the really obvious things about the company. Then you're going to move out to some things that only some people know about the company, and then put in a few things that very few people know. So the obvious things are Dunkin Donuts is beverage led. That means the majority of their sales come from drinks. Donuts are only a small part of their actual business. They're owned by Dunkin brands. They are focused mainly on coffee. Coffee is their number one selling item. They've expanded internationally, and they were founded in 1950 by William Rosenberg. The other thing to be aware of, and definitely research this or ask before you go to your interview, is some locations are owned directly by Dunkin brands and are corporate-owned stores, and a lot of stores are franchised. So they might be owned by a small business owner, or they might be part of a group of Dunkin Donuts stores, or it might even be a company that owns lots of different franchises. And you need to know what you are applying to. Are you applying to a franchise, or are you applying to the company itself? Because that will change the way that you approach the interview. So if you're applying to a franchisee, you're going to be thinking about what they're looking for in terms of a person joining a small, close-knit community. Whereas if you're applying to the corporate one, you're applying in a more kind of corporate setting. And so you're going to approach it slightly differently. And my top tip for this is to read Dunkin Brand's Form 10K. If you just Google that, you'll find what's basically their annual report, and it has got all of the information you could possibly want about the company. And if you've just taken maybe half an hour to read that, you will massively impress the company with your knowledge, and you can include bits of knowledge all the way through the interview. Question 3, how would you handle a rude and abusive customer? There is a simple procedure, again, to answer this. And if you get these 3 ideas in, you're going to be successful. So you're going to start by talking about that you're going to stay calm and composed. You're never going to raise your voice, and you're never going to shout at the customer. You're going to follow the company's policy, and just make that very clear. Just say that I'm going to follow the company's policies at all times. For example, if the customer is not due a refund, just because they're angry and abusive doesn't mean that they can have a refund, but you're going to always act with empathy. And the number one most important phrase that you must get in is de-escalate. De-escalate is about calming everyone down and getting the situation under control. You must have the word de-escalate in there, because once you say that word, they are somewhat convinced that you know that you're going to do the right thing. Strengths and weaknesses is another very common interview question that is often badly done. So the first thing for a strength is you must pick a substantial strength. So you're thinking about something that is actually really important. Then you're going to have some evidence. So if you have a good strength but no evidence, your answer isn't very strong. So you've got to combine a good strength with some evidence. And if you can prove that someone else, or with a certificate or a reference, that you definitely have that strength, that is making such a big impact. It's going to be a way more powerful answer. But the most important thing is that your strength has to be extremely relevant to Dunkin Donuts. So an example answer might be: a major strength I've developed is, the word developed is important to get in there. Say what your strength is. For example, it could be reliability, it could be customer service. And then you need to say evidence of this strength can be found, and you could either have some sort of qualification or perhaps a reference. References are really good evidence because it says it's not just me that thinks this, somebody else in a position of authority like a manager will back me up on this strength. And then the last thing you need to do is say, I believe this strength will be useful to Dunkin Donuts because. You have to give some reason why this is going to be useful. This is you selling yourself. Prove that your strength is going to improve their business. The weakness question can be a disaster, and you have to be very careful in this. So the first thing you have to do is you have to have a genuine weakness. If you fake a rubbish, silly weakness, like saying, I'm a total perfectionist, that is showing you're not reflective. It's showing that you've not really thought about it, and you're trying to just almost lie your way through the question. That's no good. You have to also be doing something to fix it. So how are you getting over your weakness? So your weakness could be something as simple as spelling, for example. Then you're going to be very careful in making sure that Dunkin really does not care about your weakness, because if it's something important, that could lose you the whole interview. So if you were to say something completely ridiculous like, my greatest weakness is my extreme dislike for others and antisocial personality, if you say that, you've just lost the whole interview. And when you structure your answer, and it will take you a while to think up a weakness, it's a difficult one to come up with a weakness, but once you've come up with one, you can say something like, one of the weaknesses I'm aware of is, very important to get the word aware. It shows obviously awareness and some reflective ability. And then after that, you're going to be clear on, I've been working on this by. So have you taken a course? Have you done some reading about the area of your weakness? Are you looking to collaborate with other people, get support from your manager? How are you going to overcome this weakness? And if you do that, you're going to survive this question. This is a negative screening question, so you're looking for survival. The last question that we're going to go through before we look at some questions that you could be asking them, which is very important, we're going to look at, why did you quit your last job? And there are some things that they like and they're perfectly happy to hear. So if you're going for a manager or assistant manager role and you're moving up, that's a perfectly reasonable reason to be leaving your last job. Family relocation is good because it doesn't suggest anything went wrong at your previous place, and that it was situations that are outside of your direct control. For example, your partner might have got this great job and you're going to go with them. The positives of the new role, so you really talk up why you want to work at Dunkin Donuts rather than going on about what you didn't like about your last place, which is terrible. Store closure, some sort of corporate problem that is outside of your control is good. Be very clear to mention that you've left on good terms if that's true, because leaving on good terms in a way that you could go back. So if you are confident that they would hire you right back at your previous job, say that, because that reflects positively, and they may chase that up with a reference, so make sure that that's true. They absolutely hate if you say anything negative about your former employer. You are unlikely to get a job. So if you moan that you didn't like your last job, or there was some problem with the manager, or you got into conflict with someone else, or you didn't get on with people you work with, that is going to lose you the whole interview. There is very, very few managers that would ever hire anyone that said anything negative about their last employer, their last manager, or had any disagreements with anyone, because they will immediately assume, even if you are at absolutely no fault and your manager really was the worst manager in the world, they will just assume that you are the problem and you're going to infect their team, and so they're going to stay well clear of you. So be positive about your previous employer. That's a number one tip on this question. So let's look at a bonus, which is some good questions to ask. There's various ones that I'll let you read through. Pick the ones that you think are most appropriate to you. One of my favorite questions to ask is what characterizes a highly effective employee at Dunkin' Donuts? Because if you ask this, they're going to tell you exactly what they're looking for, and it is a cheeky way at the end of the interview to just remind them that you are exactly what they're looking for. And lastly, one question must match up with something that's come up. So you need to be thinking of one question while you're going through your interview to show that you're really listening to what they're saying and fully engaged. So I hope this video has been very useful to you. Best of luck in your Dunkin' Donuts interview, and thank you very much for watching.